Hi everybody, in today's petite little video, we are going over the Cori cycle. Basically what the Cori cycle is it's like a hybrid of anaerobic respiration and gluconeogenesis and glycolysis. Basically what it involves anaerobic respiration in your muscle and gluconeogenesis in your liver. The Cori cycle is the connection between a ton of exercise, a ton of sugar burning exercise in your in your muscle, a ton of sugar burning exercise in your muscle, and then gluconeogenesis in your liver so that you can keep burning sugar in your muscle. When does the Cori cycle happen? Oh my gosh, I almost called it the Cori cycle. Okay, when does the Cori cycle even happen? It happens if you're doing a super intense HIIT workout, or you're being super speedy on like a super speedy sprint, or if you're like a hockey player and you're playing hockey in a hockey game, you are going to be doing a lot of the Cori cycle to be getting a lot of your sugar needs. So here's our high level overview and context. If you're going to go out on a super speedy sprint, you have some glycogen in your muscles, and basically what glycogen is it's stored sugar. Glycogen literally represents the storage of sugar in your muscle tissues. So you're on your speedy little run and your muscles, they need to make energy so you can keep running. What is going to happen in your muscles is they are going to be breaking down that glycogen to actually access the glucose, to access that stored energy. This is why they stored the energy. Now these muscles are breaking down the glycogen, they're using the glucose, and they are sending it through anaerobic respiration. They are sending it through glycolysis. When we do glycolysis, we make ATP, usable cellular energy, and we make NADH, and then we also make pyruvate. If this were aerobic respiration, so respiration in the presence of oxygen, we would then send that pyruvate into the mitochondria, and then we would process it in the tricarboxylic acid cycle and then put it into the electron transport chain. We would be doing that if there was abundance of oxygen, tons of oxygen. But because we are doing so much super speedy intense exercise, there's literally just not enough oxygen present to process, to oxidize all our glucose. So we have to do some glycolysis. When we get to the end of glycolysis, we end with pyruvate, 2 pyruvates, 2 NADH, and a net 2 ATP. The NADH is great because it can drop electrons off at the electron transport chain. And the ATP is great because we can directly use that for cellular energy, but we have a little bit of a problem with pyruvate because now let's imagine all our oxygen is being consumed because our activity is just so intense. We cannot send pyruvate into the tricarboxylic acid cycle. We can't send it into the pyruvate dehydrogenase complex because there is no oxygen to process it, to complete its oxidation. So right now we have a problem. We're stuck with pyruvate. This is where lactic acid becomes super, super important because now we are going to use the enzyme lactate dehydrogenase to it's reverse. Yeah, we use the enzyme lactate dehydrogenase to reduce pyruvate into lactate. What this does 2 very important things. Now we've yielded lactate, and we can send that lactate into the blood and off to the liver. As soon as that lactate shows up in your liver can use lactate dehydrogenase, oxidize it into pyruvate, and then it can send that pyruvate up gluconeogenesis and make new glucose inside your liver. And your liver can spit that glucose into the blood. And then now you have blood sugar, and that blood sugar is going to go straight to your muscle. And now your muscle has sugar. And now that sugar is going to go down glycolysis all over again. So let me show you what's actually going on. Here is your your liver. Here is your muscle. I didn't label that as muscle, but now I am. M-U-S-C-L-E. Okay. Here is your liver. Here is your muscle. Let's say it's going to start in your muscle. Right now, we are burning glucose in the muscle down glycolysis. When we run glycolysis, we spit out 2 ATP, and your muscle is going to use that ATP to run or do your HIIT exercise to power your activity. Then we yield pyruvate, and we also yield 2-NADH. By the way, when we are doing glycolysis, we need NAD+. We cannot do glycolysis without adding NAD+ in here and then spitting out NADH. There is one enzyme in glycolysis that uses NAD+ to oxidize one of the molecules. So if there is no NAD+, we can't do glycolysis. If there is no glucose, obviously, we can't do glycolysis. We need this NAD+, but here's one problem. Every single time we run glycolysis, we reduce that NAD+ into NADH. At some point, when we are doing glycolysis over and over and over and over and over again, we will end up with way too much NADH and like hardly any at all NAD+, like almost no NAD+. What lactic acid fermentation does is it regenerates our NAD+. Without this lactic acid fermentation, we would not be able to process any more of the sugar coming into the muscle or any more of the glucose being hydrolyzed from glycogenolysis. So this is a very critical step happening in your muscle. We go from pyruvate into lactate, and the enzyme is lactate dehydrogenase. And what it does is it takes that excess of NADH and it uses the NADH to reduce pyruvate into lactate, and it spits out this NAD+. And here's where it all comes together. This NAD+ that we just spat out down here, travels all the way up back here, and we can do glycolysis again. So we go glucose, NAD+ comes in, ATP comes out, NADH comes out. Now we have pyruvate. Well, we're stuck now. But then we do lactic acid fermentation, and we take this excess NADH and we use it to reduce pyruvate into lactic acid, and then that NAD+ comes back out again. And we literally just keep going woo, woo, woo in circles and circles and circles. This is when the Cori cycle actually starts to happen, because we haven't really done the Cori cycle yet. We did lactic acid fermentation, so we've just synthesized lactate inside the muscle, and we've regenerated NAD+ so we can continue doing glycolysis. Well, we've run into the next problem. Your muscle literally has no sugar. Like, you're running so intensely, you have no more sugar, you have no more glycogen. Your muscle is literally starved of energy. So your body understands now it needs to do gluconeogenesis. It needs to start making its own glucose, because no glucose is coming in. You're not eating, you're not drinking sugar, there's just no glucose anywhere, so we have to make it ourselves. Your liver can make its own glucose from a few different things. It can make glucose from lactate, alanine, glycerol, and some amino acids, I believe, can all be used to make glucose. In the Cori cycle, we are making glucose from lactate. So what's going to happen? The lactate synthesized in your muscle cell gets spat out into the blood, and it travels as blood lactate to your liver cell. Literally, what's happening over here is just a reverse of this. Lactate inside your liver, the hormone glucagon is high. Glucagon is glucose gone. It's the hormone that is up when there's low blood sugar. Insulin is the opposite of glucagon. If there's high blood sugar, you have a lot of insulin. If there's low blood sugar, you have a lot of glucagon. Glucagon is going to signal gluconeogenesis in your liver. Lactate comes in. The enzyme lactate dehydrogenates lactate. It makes an NADH, and the most important part here now is it yields pyruvate. Now all we have to do is send this pyruvate up gluconeogenesis, and then we yield glucose. And then the liver spits that glucose into your blood. Now we've just restored blood glucose levels, and we send that glucose to your muscle cell, and then your muscle burns that glucose for energy. So that was the Cori cycle. Ta-da! Upside down. Ta-da!
And now, just so everybody can learn it, because you're all so intelligent, we're going to draw it just from our own memory stores.